I pulled up to the curb, engine humming softly, as Logan and Ava buzzed with excitement in the back seat. Their chatter filled the car, a mix of nervousness and anticipation for their first day back at school. It should have been a moment of pride, a simple, normal morning. But my stomach was tight, a familiar weight settling in my chest. I already knew what was coming. "Daddy, are you okay?" Ava's voice was soft, concerned. I forced a smile, glancing at her through the rearview mirror. She had her mother's sharp instincts, always picking up on things I wish she wouldn't. "Of course, sweetheart," I said, keeping my voice steady. "It's your big day, remember? Let's make it awesome." I put the car in park and stepped out, grabbing their backpacks from the trunk. The air was crisp, but it did nothing to cool the heat rising in my chest as I turned toward the school entrance. And there they were, Natalie and Ryan, standing side by side, perfectly posed as if waiting for an audience. Natalie's blonde hair was styled effortlessly, her designer coat draped over her shoulders like she was walking a runway, not dropping off kids at an elementary school. And Ryan stood there with his arms crossed, that same arrogant smirk on his face, the one that always screamed, "I won." My jaw clenched, but I kept my expression neutral. No way was I giving them the satisfaction. "Jason?" Natalie greeted smoothly, her voice dipped in fake sweetness. "What a surprise." I exhaled through my nose, keeping my grip firm on Ava's backpack. "It's school drop-off, Natalie. Where else would I be?" She smiled, slow and practiced, like she was enjoying some inside joke I wasn't in on. "Oh, some parents get distracted and lose track of time. I wasn't sure you'd be on time." There it was, the first shot of the morning. Logan shifted beside me, uncomfortable. Ava stayed close, her small fingers gripping the sleeve of my jacket. Ryan chuckled, a low, satisfied sound. "Good to see you still trying, Jason. It's admirable." "Still trying?" I met his gaze, steady. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Oh, nothing," Natalie said airily, adjusting her coat. "We're just so proud of how you've managed. Everything considered." I knew exactly what they were doing, chipping away at me, little by little, making their digs sound almost harmless like they were just casual observations. But I wasn't falling for it. Not today. Ava hesitated before stepping toward her mother, giving me one last glance before Natalie swept her into an embrace. Logan stayed put, shifting awkwardly before mumbling a half-hearted, "Hey, Mom." Natalie ignored the lukewarm greeting, beaming as she fussed over Ava's hair. "Did Daddy make sure you had everything for school, sweetheart?" Logan exhaled sharply, already tired of the act. "Yeah, we're good." Ryan leaned in, amused. "It's nice to see Jason handling things so well. Single parenting can't be easy." My fists clenched at my sides. I knew what they were trying to dough-plant seeds of doubt and make me feel like I was barely holding things together. But they underestimated me. I forced a calm smile. "Logan, Ava, let's go." Natalie's expression flickered, just for a second, before she recovered. "Jason," Ryan called, just as I turned. His voice was thick with mock concern. "No need to be so tense. We're all here for the kids, right?" I glanced back, meeting his smug gaze. "Awkward," I said, voice even. "No, Ryan. Awkward would be me commenting on your parenting. But I won't stoop that low." His smirk faltered, just slightly. And for the first time that morning, I almost smiled. Almost. As I walked my kids toward the school entrance, Logan turned to me. "Why does Mom always act like that?" I exhaled, keeping my voice level. "She's just being herself." He frowned, not buying it, but didn't press further. As we reached the school doors, I glanced back one last time. Natalie and Ryan were still standing there, their smiles thinner now, their eyes harder. I recognized the look. It wasn't satisfaction. It was something else. Doubt. For the first time, I wondered if they were starting to realize something. Maybe I wasn't as easy to rattle as they thought. The drive home was quiet, but my mind wasn't. Logan and Ava had already forgotten about the awkward exchange. Kids had that luxury. I didn't. Natalie and Ryan's words played over in my head, each one carefully placed, like they were testing the waters. Not just jabs, not just condescension. It was something more, something calculated. "Still trying? We're proud of how you've managed. Single parenting can't be easy." They weren't just looking down on me, they were setting a narrative. By the time I pulled into my driveway, I could feel it in my gut something was off. This wasn't just about school drop-off. This was bigger. I stepped inside, tossing my keys onto the counter. The house was quiet, too quiet. I grabbed a bottle of water from the fridge and pulled out my phone, scrolling through my emails. Halfway down my inbox, something caught my eye. A flagged message from a name I hadn't seen in months. David Reynolds. An old contact, a former business associate, not someone who'd reach out without a reason. Subject, heads up. I tapped it open, my stomach tightening before I even read the first line. Jason, I wanted to give you a heads up. Someone's been asking around about your business. Nothing official, just fishing. They reached out to one of my guys, asking about your financials and upcoming projects. Thought you should know. I exhaled slowly, setting the phone down. Fishing. That could mean anything. A competitor, an investor doing due diligence, or a potential partner checking their options. But it didn't feel like that. It felt targeted. Personal. I already knew who it was. Ryan. He hadn't just been standing there at drop-off to smirk and gloat. He'd been watching, measuring, seeing if his little digs landed. And now he was digging deeper. I ran a hand down my face, forcing myself to think clearly. My business wasn't just surviving, it was growing. The past year had been brutal, sure, but I'd built something solid. I had good clients, steady contracts, and an investor meeting on the horizon. So why now? I pulled up David's number and hit call. He picked up on the second ring. Jason. Figured you'd call. I didn't waste time. Who approached your guy? David hesitated. Didn't give a name. Just said they were looking into potential acquisitions. That's the word they used. Acquisitions. Ryan wasn't just sniffing around. He was trying to find a way in. A weakness. A chance to make a move. What exactly did they ask? I pressed. They wanted details on your revenue, whether you had any financial strains if you were looking to sell. A pause. They made it sound like your company was unstable. I gripped the edge of the counter. My jaw tightened. Unstable. That's what this was about. Ryan and Natalie weren't just trying to play mind games. They were trying to discredit me, make me look weak, vulnerable, and I already knew why. Ryan wanted my company. I let out a slow breath, forcing myself to stay calm. Did your guy give them anything? David scoffed. Hell no. But if they came to us, they probably went to others. I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. Thanks for the heads up. No problem. Keep your guard up. I ended the call and stared at the screen for a long moment. Ryan had money. Not his own. Of course, he was good at spending other people's. He had connections. And now he had a story to sell. A neat little package wrapped in the illusion of concern. Poor Jason. Struggling single dad. Business barely holding on. Would be a shame if it collapsed. The problem for Ryan? None of it was true. My business was thriving. Stronger than ever. But rumors didn't need truth to spread. They just needed the right push. And I had no doubt Natalie was helping him push. I walked to my office and sat down, my mind already moving 3 steps ahead. If Ryan wanted to play this game, fine. But he had no idea who he was playing against. I opened my laptop and started making calls. First, my accountant. Run a full audit on the past 6 months. Look for anything unusual requests for information, inquiries, anything that stands out. Then my lawyer. I need a deep dive on Ryan. Business dealings, assets, anything that looks off. And finally, my most trusted vendor. If anyone asks about my company, I want to know, immediately. By the time I finished, the knot in my stomach had shifted. It wasn't unease anymore. It was the focus. Ryan thought he was ahead of me. He thought I'd panic and start making desperate moves. He had no idea I'd already started planning his downfall. I sat back in my chair, tapping my fingers against the desk, my mind running through every possibility. Ryan was smart, but he wasn't careful. He was the kind of guy who thought he could get away with anything just because no one had ever stopped him before. That was about to change. I opened my laptop and pulled up my business accounts, scanning through recent transactions, emails, and financial reports. Everything looked clean in the surface, but I wasn't looking for what was obvious. I was looking for what was missing. It didn't take long to find it. There were a few inquiries from unknown companies I didn't recognize, ones that hadn't done business with me before. Requests for minor details, things that wouldn't normally raise suspicion. Except they all had one thing in common. They were all linked to Ryan's industry. I clenched my jaw. He wasn't just looking into my business. He was testing the waters, seeing how much information he could pull without setting off alarms. Too bad for him I saw the alarm before it even rang. I picked up my phone and dialed my accountant. Hey, Jason, he answered. What's up? I need you to run a detailed audit on the past 6 months, I said. Look for anything unusual. Third-party requests for financials and business inquiries that don't add up. I don't care how small it is, if it stands out, flag it. There was a pause. Something going on? I exhaled. Just a suspicion. Got it. I'll get back to you soon. I hung up and immediately called my lawyer. Alex, I need you to do a deep dive on Ryan's LLCs. I want to know everything who's backing him, what assets he has, and most importantly, if there's anything shady in his financials. Alex didn't even hesitate. Consider it done. I leaned back, gripping the edge of my desk. The pieces were starting to come together. Ryan wasn't just trying to undermine me. He was trying to make a move on my company. And he wasn't doing it alone. I pulled up a business database and typed in Ryan's name, narrowing the search to recent filings. Within seconds, a list of LLCs popped up, most of them standard real estate, consulting firms, nothing out of the ordinary. But one caught my eye. A new company, registered just 2 months ago. Crestview Acquisitions. I clicked on the details and scanned the summary. The description was vague, but I didn't need a full breakdown to know what it was. Acquisitions. Ryan had set up a company specifically for buying out businesses. My business. I gritted my teeth, my grip tightening on the mouse. So that was the plan. Ryan wasn't just trying to spread rumors about my company being unstable, he was laying the groundwork to swoop in and rescue it, probably with a lowball offer wrapped in fake sympathy. A strategic buyout. He wanted to take what I built and make it his own. I exhaled slowly, a sharp smile forming. Cute. But he made one mistake. He underestimated me. I pulled up my contacts and sent a quick message to a friend in the industry, someone who had way more experience with acquisitions than Ryan ever would. Need a favor. Looking into a company called Crestview Acquisitions. See if they've made any moves lately. Less than 5 minutes later, I got a response. Yeah, they've been sniffing around. Nothing solid yet, but they've approached a few firms about potential buyouts. Your name came up. I closed my eyes for a brief moment, letting the anger settle. Ryan was already testing the waters, feeling out investors, trying to see if he could build a case for why my company was a smart purchase. I cracked my knuckles and smiled to myself. He thought he was ahead. He had no idea I was already laying a trap. I made another call this time to my most trusted vendor, the guy who'd been working with me for years, the one who never let me down. Mike, I need a favor. Name it. If anyone asks about my company, my financials, my contracts, I want to know immediately, no matter who it is. Mike's tone sharpened. Something going on? Just covering my bases, I said smoothly. I have a feeling someone's fishing. Got it. I'll keep my ears open. I hung up, already feeling the shift. Ryan thought he was setting the stage, thought he was guiding this little play of his, manipulating the pieces. But he didn't realize something. I wasn't just another piece on his board. I was the one flipping the whole damn table. I didn't waste time. Ryan had made his move, and now it was my turn. I started with my clients. One by one, I reached out short, casual conversations. No mention of Ryan, no hint of concern. Just reinforcing the relationships I'd built over the years. A check-in here, an update there. A reminder of why they trusted me in the first place. If Ryan was hoping to shake their confidence, he was going to be disappointed. Next, I called my accountant. Anything? I asked the second he picked up. Yeah, he said, sighing. A couple of strange requests for financials. Nothing official, just unusual interest. From who? Hard to say. The request came through back-channels third-party firms, nothing directly tied to Ryan. But I'd bet money it's him. I clenched my jaw. Ryan was being careful, but not careful enough. Keep digging, I said. If anything else pops up, let me know immediately. Will do. I hung up and leaned back in my chair, exhaling slowly. Ryan was trying to paint a picture narrative where my business was vulnerable and unstable. He wanted investors to see me as a risk. But I wasn't a risk. I had a problem. For him, I opened my laptop and pulled up the notes from my upcoming investor meeting. If Ryan thought I was weak, I'd show him just how wrong he was. I spent the next few hours refining my pitch, making sure every number was airtight and every projection rock solid. By the time I was done, I wasn't just prepared. I was bulletproof. Then, I made another call. My lawyer, Alex, answered on the first ring. Tell me you have something, I said. "Oh, I have something," he replied, his tone sharp. "Crestview Acquisitions is a joke. Barely any assets, and most of their supposed backers are either pulling out or have no real money to invest." I smirked. "So Ryan's playing pretend." "Pretty much. He's trying to look bigger than he is, probably to attract more investors. But there's one interesting detail: he's taken on a lot of debt, more than he can handle." Debt. I filed that away. It meant Ryan was desperate. Desperate people make mistakes. "Keep watching him," I said, "and let me know the second you see an opening." "Will do." I hung up and checked the time. If Ryan was making moves behind the scenes, it was time to let him know I was watching. I pulled up my email and sent a message to him. Subject: a friendly reminder. "Ryan, I heard you've been asking around about my business. If there's anything you need, feel free to ask me directly. Always happy to help. Best, Jason." I hit send and leaned back, smiling to myself. I didn't expect a response. That wasn't the point. The point was to let him know that I wasn't in the dark, that I wasn't scrambling, that I wasn't playing defense. I was coming for him, and he wasn't ready. The school parking lot was packed, and parents filed into the auditorium for the monthly PTA meeting. Normally, I wouldn't bother showing up, but tonight was different. Tonight, I had a reason to be here. I stepped inside, scanning the room. It didn't take long to spot them. Natalie and Ryan were seated near the front, smiling, laughing, and acting like they owned the place, like they always did. Ryan was talking to a small group of dads, probably running his mouth, spinning whatever story made him look good. Natalie, meanwhile, was effortlessly working the room, charming the other moms, making sure she stayed the center of attention. I could already hear the whispers as I walked past. I wasn't stupid. I knew Ryan had been planting doubts, pushing his little narrative. The struggling single dad, the failing business, the inevitable collapse. Too bad for him, I was about to change the story. I took a seat in the middle of the room, casually watching as the principal stepped up to the podium and started the meeting. School updates, budget discussions, upcoming fundraisers, the usual. Then, just as the meeting was wrapping up, I raised my hand. The room quieted. The principal nodded in my direction. "Jason, go ahead." I stood, keeping my tone light and casual. I just wanted to take a moment to share some exciting news. I glanced toward the front. Natalie and Ryan were watching now. Natalie's smile was frozen in place, but her eyes had sharpened. Ryan leaned back, arms crossed like he was waiting to be entertained. I gave them nothing. "I recently finalized a major investment deal for my company," I continued. "It's a partnership that not only secures our future, but sets us up for significant expansion." There was a brief pause. Then, scattered applause. Parents murmured to one another, exchanging impressed looks. I let it sink in before adding, "I know there have been some concerns about my business lately." I let my gaze flicker toward Ryan, just for a second. "So I just wanted to clarify those concerns are unfounded. Things have never been better." Ryan's smirk twitched. Natalie shifted in her seat, glancing at him. I could see it now, that flicker of doubt, the realization that whatever they'd been trying to build against me had just collapsed in a single moment. "Anyway," I finished, "I just wanted to share. Thanks for your time." I sat back down, and the meeting moved on, but the damage had already been done. The second it ended, I stood up, deliberately taking my time as I walked toward the exit. I didn't have to look back to know they were watching me, but I did anyway. Natalie was still seated, her nails tapping against her phone screen, pretending to be unbothered. Ryan, on the other hand, looked pissed. Good. I stepped outside into the cool night air, inhaling deeply. They had spent weeks trying to write my downfall, and I had just set fire to the whole script. I wasn't surprised when I got a text from Natalie the next day. "Natalie, can we talk? It's important." I stared at the message for a second before responding. "Me? Busy. What's this about?" Her reply came almost instantly. "Natalie, Ryan mentioned something about business conflicts. I think we should clear the air before things get messy." Messy? That was rich, considering they were the ones who tried to sabotage me. But now that things weren't going their way, suddenly she wanted to talk. I decided to humor her. "Me. Fine. Tonight. Usual coffee shop." I arrived first, taking a seat in the corner where I could see the door. When Natalie walked in, she looked like she'd rehearsed this moment, perfectly put together, expensive coat, just enough concern on her face to seem genuine. But she wasn't fooling me. "Jason," she said, sliding into the seat across from me. "Thanks for meeting me." I didn't bother with pleasantries. What do you want, Natalie? She sighed, tilting her head like I was being difficult. Look, I know things have been tense lately. Ryan might have overstepped, and I don't want this to escalate. I let out a short laugh. Overstepped? I repeated. He's been trying to sabotage my business, spread false rumors, and poach my clients. That's not overstepping. That's a calculated attack. She shifted in her seat, fingers playing with the edge of her cup. Ryan can be impulsive. He thought he was helping us secure opportunities. It wasn't personal. Not personal? I leaned forward, my voice low and sharp. He used my name to push his agenda. It doesn't get more personal than that. She didn't respond. For the first time in a long time, Natalie looked uncomfortable. Good. She took a slow sip of her coffee before setting it down. I didn't know the full extent of what he was doing, she said, but if you're willing to let this go, I'll make sure he backs off. I almost laughed again. Let it go? I asked. Natalie, I'm not the one who started this, but I can promise you this, I'm going to finish it. Her eyes narrowed slightly. What's that supposed to mean? It means I'm done playing defense, I said, my voice calm but firm. Ryan made a mistake thinking I'd just roll over. I've already gathered enough evidence to prove what he's been doing, and if you two keep pushing, I won't hesitate to take it public. For the first time, I saw a flicker of fear in her eyes. Jason, think about the kids, she said quietly. Do you want to drag this out? I exhaled slowly. The kids, I repeated. They're the only reason I haven't buried Ryan yet. I leaned back, shaking my head. But don't mistake my restraint for weakness. She held my gaze for a long moment, then sighed and pushed back her chair. I tried, she said, standing up. I hope you don't regret this. I just smiled. Oh, I won't. I watched her walk out, knowing exactly what had just happened. Natalie wasn't here to fix anything. She was here to gauge how much I knew, to see if I'd back down. But she got her answer. And soon Ryan would too. The moment Natalie walked out of that coffee shop, I knew what was coming next. Ryan wasn't going to back off. He was going to double down. And that was exactly what I wanted. I pulled out my phone and called Alex. It's time, I said. You sure? Positive. Let's start with his backers. Alex didn't need more details. He knew exactly what to do. For weeks, Ryan had been trying to paint a picture of me as weak, struggling, and vulnerable. But the truth was, the cracks weren't in my business. They were in his, and I was about to split them wide open. That night, Alex sent out the first wave of emails synonymously, of course. A handful of Ryan's investors and business partners received a very detailed, well-documented breakdown of his financial missteps. His growing debts, his reckless spending, his over-leveraged investments. None of it was outright illegal, but it was enough to make people nervous. And nervous investors pulled out fast. By the next morning, I was already getting messages. One from a mutual connection. Hey, Jason, heard some things about Ryan's company. Seems like it's in trouble. You wouldn't happen to know anything about that, would you? I just smiled and typed back. Not a clue. Hope everything works out for him. But I wasn't done. I still had the second half of my plan to execute. While Alex was dismantling Ryan's credibility from the inside, I was working from the outside. I spent the morning calling key contacts, reinforcing relationships, and making sure my foundation was solid. By the time I finished my last call, my reputation wasn't just intact, it was stronger than before. Ryan had bet everything on my business being weak. Now, he was the one on the verge of collapse. By mid-afternoon, I got another message from Alex. You're gonna love this. 2 of Ryan's biggest backers just pulled out, and there's a third one asking questions about where their money went. I leaned back in my chair, exhaling slowly. It was happening even faster than I expected. Ryan had built his empire on borrowed money and arrogance. Now it was crumbling. And then the final piece fell into place. An email from one of Ryan's former investors. Jason, I'll keep this brief. I was approached by Ryan a few months ago about investing in Crestview. He promised returns that, in hindsight, were optimistic. I pulled out just in time, but I thought you'd want to know he's in deep trouble. People are asking questions. Some of them are considering legal action. I let that sit for a moment, tapping my fingers against the desk. I could end this right now. One final push, and Ryan wouldn't just lose his company. He'd be buried under lawsuits and financial investigations for years. But I wasn't going to do it. I didn't need to. Ryan had already lost. And the best part? He didn't even know it yet. The silence was the first thing I noticed. No more calls, no more whispers, no more rumors spreading behind my back. Ryan had gone quiet. That meant only one thing he knew. I got the confirmation a few days later. A text, short and bitter. Ryan, we need to talk. I stared at the message for a moment before responding. Me. About? Ryan, you know what? I let him sit with it for a few hours before finally replying. Me. Fine. Name the time and place. He chose a neutral spot, a hotel lobby downtown, public enough that he could pretend this was just another business meeting. When I walked in, he was already there, sitting stiffly in one of the leather chairs. He looked different. The usual smugness was gone. His suit, always perfectly pressed, had a slight wrinkle. His jaw was tight, his fingers drumming against the armrest. For the first time, Ryan looked like a man who knew he was losing. I took a seat across from him, leaning back. So? He exhaled through his nose, shaking his head. You did it. I didn't say anything. He scoffed, running a hand through his hair. My investors pulled out. My backers are gone. My company is finished. I tilted my head slightly. That sounds rough. His eyes flashed, but he held it back. You happy? I took a slow breath, then shrugged. Not happy. Satisfied. He let out a humorless laugh. You think you won? I don't think, Ryan, I know. He clenched his jaw, staring at me like he wanted to say something else. But no words came out. I leaned forward slightly. You made a mistake. You thought I was weak. You thought you could walk into my life, take what I built, and I'd just let you. I shook my head. That was never going to happen. He looked away, his fingers tightening around the armrest. I stood, straightening my jacket. This is done. Stay out of my business. Stay out of my way. I turned to leave, but before I walked away, I paused. Oh, and Ryan? He looked up. I smiled. Don't ever underestimate me again. I walked out, stepping into the cool night air. For the first time in a long time, I felt something I hadn't in years. Peace. By the time I got home, Logan and Ava were waiting for me in the living room. Ava looked up, her wide eyes curious. Daddy, why are you smiling so much? I laughed, ruffling her hair. Because things are finally good, sweetheart, and they're only going to get better. Logan smirked. So, does this mean you finally won against Mom and Ryan? I met his gaze, my smile softening. It was never about winning, I said. It was about making sure no one ever tries to take from us again. Ava hugged me tightly, and Logan nodded, understanding more than he let on. As I sat with them, listening to their stories about their day, I realized something. Winning wasn't about revenge. It was about reclaiming my life. And I had finally done it.